What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Another impromptu, spontaneous live stream here on this Thursday at noon, talking New York Giants. And honestly, we could probably classify this, Alex, as an emergency live stream because we do have big news, huge news for the New York Giants, somewhat breaking news from last night. John Mara over at the screening for the new Wellington Mara documentary, spoke with the media, spoke with the reporters, didn't say a peep about Daniel Jones. We'll dive into that in a little bit. But he had some insight on the future of this New York Giants team. He said that he does not anticipate any in-season or end-of-season firings for head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen. Said he wants to remain patient. Those two are safe. Big deal here for the New York Giants. Sounds like the Schoen Daboll regime here to stay now. I'm curious to hear some thoughts in the comments. Make sure you guys drop those right now. We'll interact with the live chat in today's live stream. I know there are a lot of Giants fans who are happy with this news, want to see this team be patient, but there are also, Alex, a lot of fans who are unhappy with this news and say it's too soon to make a decision. And maybe by the end of the year, we do need to fire Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And before I hand it off to you, what I will say is I do believe John Mara wants to be patient. I think that he is telling the truth right now. But also, we've seen him say these things before. We have seen him have this exact quote come out in the past. And what has happened? Well, the Giants lost too many games, and eventually he made a rash decision, and he did fire somebody. So again, while I believe him, I think being patient is the right move, and it is the move that he will make. At the end of the day, there are 10 weeks left in the season. A whole lot can happen. Who knows? Maybe we will get a reboot. But Alex, what is your reaction to John Mara's comments? Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, seemingly safe.
I mean, this is what we expected, right? Like, he's not going to come out and say, "Oh, like this is their last season. We're firing them. They're doing a horrible job." The Giants, according to PFF, have the #1 rookie class in football right now. If they didn't, if that was more like bottom half rookie class, there would be a much better argument to fire them. And John Mara is not going to give away any information right now. But listen, guys, there's 10 more weeks of the NFL season. A lot can happen. A Daniel Jones injury, another catastrophic loss to the Steelers in prime time. There is so much left to kind of unfold here that John Mara, we know he can be reactionary at times, although he's given guys like Dave Gettleman 4 years, right? Like, I don't think Joe Schoen will be fired. If anything, they would fire Brian Daboll and then try to find a new head coach. Maybe that would be like a Mike Vrabel type of supplement, and then having Joe Schoen stay in his role. Who knows? Like, there's so many different things that could happen. I don't think they're going to fire Brian Daboll, and I don't think they're going to fire Joe Schoen because that rookie class has been so good, and they're seeing signs of life elsewhere. But the problem is simple. Like, they know they have to get a quarterback. We talked about this yesterday. We exhausted it, right? We exhausted the situation. And I wrote a really long article that I posted on Twitter a couple minutes ago about this Daniel Jones situation, about this injury clause. And I want to give you guys some insight. And I know everyone's so curious, like, what's going on with the injury clause? What's up with that? I want to know more. I'm going to break it down for you guys right now because I think it is super, super important that we know kind of what happens if Jones gets hurt. What's at stake if he gets hurt? So Daniel Jones, we gave him a 4-year, $160 million deal. You guys know this. $81 million guaranteed. It's a lot of money guaranteed, 50% guaranteed. They kind of built in this second year out that saves the Giants $19.4 million next year. If they cut him, they can take that 19.2, or rather the $22 million in dead money that they will have to pay $22 million in dead money. They will have to basically pay that entire thing unless they decide, okay, you know what? We can actually split that up into 2 years. We can pay half of it 2025 and 2026. So it'd only be $11 million each season, which would add an extra $10 million to our savings next year. So the Giants could theoretically, if they cut Daniel Jones, have about $30 million in extra money to spend in free agency. That's not even mentioning you have to pay your draft class. You got to pay any free agents that you might want to bring in, but you could restructure some contracts. Brian Burns and Andrew Thomas, there's some contracts you could restructure if you wanted to go in that direction. And I imagine they probably will if they do happen to do that. But with that being said, Daniel Jones's injury clause is $23 million. If he gets hurt and he fails his March 16th physical, which, by the way, the season ends in January, right? So if he suffers a season-ending injury right now, he is going to fail that physical in March. Like, guaranteed, he's failing that physical in March. That is not that far away. If he suffers an injury, a season-ending injury, over the last couple weeks of the season, he's going to fail that physical. If he suffers a broken leg in the last game of the season that only keeps him out for 4 months, he is going to fail that physical, right? Even the season ending, even if it's not a season ending injury, if he has a slight fracture or cracks a couple ribs, he may fail that physical 2 months later, right? Like that's kind of the situation. So think about what happened last year with the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. They benched him 2 weeks before, or a couple weeks before the end of the regular season, because they wanted to protect themselves from that big injury clause. It was the right decision for them. I know they did it with the Vegas Raiders did it with Derek Carr before they moved him to the New Orleans Saints. So when you're looking at the $23 million in injury clause money, the problem is if he gets hurt and they have to pay him his entire salary cap hit next year, that injury clause is actually $3.6 million more than his salary cap at $41.6 million next year. So they will have to pay him $3.6 million more if he gets hurt, instead of if they just cut him and save the 19 mil. In addition to that, if he is on the roster on March 16th, they owe him another $12 million in guarantees because of the start of the new league year. So him getting injured, it is catastrophic to the Giants' plans in 2025. Now, they're going to draft a quarterback for sure. I don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to have to draft a quarterback or acquire somebody. Acquiring somebody is less likely because now they have no money to spend. So they're going to have to draft somebody, and it's going to have to be a bridge situation. If they end up keeping Daniel Jones because he's injured, they can't get rid of him, like physically cannot get rid of him, and he's on this team, they will just use him as a bridge. That'll be that. And then in 2026, they'll have all of his money off the books, and then they'll move into the future. That is the alternative to getting rid of him, is him just staying on the roster, him being the bridge, and then you kind of usher a new player in. But I don't want him to be the bridge. I want a guy that commands respect from this locker room. I would prefer a Jameis Winston, a guy that can throw, takes risks, he's aggressive, can throw the football. He's not afraid to throw interceptions because he's a gunslinger. Daniel Jones is afraid to throw interceptions, he's afraid to take shots. Brian Daboll's trying to run an offense for Josh Allen, but he has a quarterback that has massive limitations. He can't throw the ball downfield. He has an 11.5% turnover-worthy play percentage when throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield this season. That is stupendous. It is ridiculous. He's throwing into double and triple coverages instead of throwing to open receivers. He can't hit guys off platform. It's a disaster. We all acknowledge this, though. We know this now. It's not about that. It's about when do you bench Daniel Jones? Because at the same time, Anthony, the Giants can't wave the white flag in week 8, right? They can't wave the white flag in week 8. It would be catastrophic to the locker room. It would undermine the leadership that they've built with guys like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and these veterans, Bobby Okereke, guys that are putting their bodies on the line. They're playing injured, notably Brian Burns. And then you have guys like Deontay Banks who are not even trying to tackle, right? And I think it was Art Stapleton. Somebody said something really, really, really good. And I thought it was worth saying here is that you have veterans and Brian Burns who's trotting out there with a groin injury, a serious groin injury every week and competing his butt off. And then you have Deontay Banks who's not even trying to tackle Jalen Hurts on a rushing play, or he's giving up on plays. Remember the CD Lamb one? That is unacceptable. There are two differences here. The veterans are putting it all on the field and the young guys are giving up halfway through a play. That is unacceptable. I think Deontay Banks, thinking about it since yesterday, I think there has to be a consequence here. I think they should bench him for half a game. I don't care if the Giants lose. They have to set a standard. You know what I mean? They're going to probably lose anyway, but they have to set a standard here that giving up on plays and not putting your best foot forward and literally mid-play stopping running, you can't have it, especially when you have guys putting their bodies on the line with groin injuries and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like this is a serious problem. They have to address it. Otherwise, the leadership and the coaching staff is going to be compromised if they cannot set a standard. I don't know many coaches that would deal with something like this and not consequence a player for giving up mid-play. You know what I mean? Especially a second-year rookie or second-year cornerback that still has a lot to prove. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think there has to be a consequence here because otherwise the coaching staff is going to lose some respect. They have to be disciplined. They can't let guys get away with this, especially when you have Brian Burns out there trotting out, injured, playing his butt off and producing anyway. I think that there has to be something that happens here, whether it be internally, externally, but there has to be a visible consequence because otherwise players are going to start giving up left and right.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. Players will start giving up if the Giants don't make a change. There needs to be some sort of discipline. It's unacceptable for players to be giving up on plays. But at the same time, I feel for Deontay Banks and I feel for a lot of these players who are losing effort because, especially on the defensive side of the ball, when you are putting your body on the line and you are working your ass off through four quarters of a football game, meanwhile, the offense musters up 3 points. Yeah, you're bound to start giving up and your effort is going to start lacking. It's going to happen. It's very unfortunate to say, but That is really just human nature. Got a great super chat here from Mike G. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all you guys do. This team causes a lot of stress, but you guys keep me motivated for the future. We try our best, my friend. Thank you again for the super chat. And let me just tell you, this team causes us a lot of stress as well. Man, we got to write articles about this team every day. We got to make content about this team every day. It sure is stressful, especially at 2-5, another losing season, another season spiraling out of control. You absolutely hate to see it. But hey, one thing that keeps us motivated is you, all of you guys, being able to interact with you, do these live streams, upload these episodes, and interact with you in the comment sections and build this community. This is what keeps us motivated through these ugly seasons. But even though these seasons are ugly, we got to look ahead to the future. This is an interesting comment here, Alex, from Smithers. Fire Schoen, keep Daboll. Most people have it the other way around. And I'm going to tell you, if it's going to happen, if there is going to be a firing, it's got to be the other way around, I would think. And for one reason and one reason only, the rookie draft class. The Giants hit on their first-round pick with Malik Neighbors, superstar receiver. Second-round pick, Tyler Nubin, is a solid starting safety in year one. He's only going to get better. Third-round pick, Drew Phillips, CB1 on this team, arguably. He is their best cornerback in the nickel. Yeah, not an outside corner, but still a damn good player. Fourth-round pick, Theo Johnson, maybe develops into something. Looks decent. Doesn't look like a terrible player. Fifth-round pick, Tyrone Tracy, might be the starting running back before the end of the season. So you're talking about 5 straight rounds of a hit. You don't fire a GM coming off of a draft class like that. You just don't. And listen, he could be fired for, you could argue firing for him because of the Daniel Jones contract, the Saquon Barkley dilemma. There are definitely mistakes that Joe Schoen made, but this rookie draft class absolutely bought him some time, in my opinion. Brian Daboll, my problem with him is he does get outcoached a little bit more than you would like. However, we haven't seen him with the quarterback that he clearly loves and he clearly is enamored by and feels like he could unlock a lot of potential out of. So I think once we get through the next season with a new QB and see if he can develop a youngster, that's when we can make a more realistic determination on Daboll. But I don't think either of these guys are getting fired. I think they are both here to stay, like John Mara said last night. I think they're going to be the head coach and GM going into 2025. And I think that's ultimately going to be the right decision. But like I said, let's wait and see. As Alex just ranted for a while about the locker room, let's see what happens with this locker room, because over the next 10 weeks, if Daboll loses the locker room, he might end up getting fired. But for now, I do feel confident that these guys have talent, that they are smart football minds. They just have been constrained by a lot of other elements surrounding them. So we will see what it looks like by the end of the season. But I think Schoen and Daboll are definitely here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. I do think they're probably here to stay. And here's the thing about that, though, Anthony, and I think it's worthy of a discussion. The Giants are going to draft a quarterback next year, right? We don't know who it's going to be, Cam Ward, Nussmeier, whatever. If you give Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen the right to draft their quarterback, how many years do you have to guarantee them? I think you have to give them at least 2 years, because you can't draft a rookie quarterback and then call it quits after one season, right? You can't, it's unsustainable. It would be catastrophic to this team's future. Do you trust Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to pick the right quarterback? And do you trust them to make progress here over the next 2 years to a point where this team is winning football games and at least relatively competitive? I mean, in the article I wrote this morning, Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown pass at MetLife in over 630 days. There have been multiple NHL players who have scored goals outdoors in MetLife since then. I mean, you tell me how bad it could get. That's how bad. Zach Wilson has 6 touchdowns in that span. Aaron Rodgers has 4, and he missed all of last season. So, when you're looking at the situation at hand, the Giants have to bring in someone who can win in prime time and can show up and not get rattled when things go wrong. I think Cam Ward's that guy. I think, does he start immediately? Not totally sure. But I watched him go down in games and fight back and not make the same mistakes twice and make ridiculous throws and do ridiculous things. He's not afraid to make those decisions, and he's calm, cool, and collected. If the Giants can upgrade their offensive line, and this is what I would say, you go get Cam Ward, you go and you sign or draft or whatever, a right guard, and you have Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, JMS, a brand new shiny right guard, and Jermaine Illuminor, and you can win with that offensive line. But we need more depth, dude. Josh Azidu, no bueno. Evan Neal, I don't even know if he's ever going to play again. I legitimately do not know what they think of him, but clearly it's nothing good. They need more depth here on the offensive line. They don't have a swing tackle, for God's sakes. They need so much more. Maybe they keep Greg Van Roten and have him just be that depth piece on a veteran like a minimum deal. I think that's probably what ends up happening. He's been fine. He's been a fine reserve, a fine starter. He can be an even better reserve because he's able to play multiple positions at a starting caliber level. So, in your opinion, how much slack here are you willing to give Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll if we are going to keep them, which seems likely at this point? How many years do they get if they draft their own quarterback? Because you can't just give them a one and done. It has to be a minimum of 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe it does have to be a minimum of 2, but what do they sign? 4-year contracts, right? So, or 5-year contracts would be 5-year contracts. So they would have this upcoming 2025 season and then the 2026 season. I think you let them play out their contracts is the way that you go. You're not going to fire them with 1 year left on the contract unless you have a really good reason to. So if they're a middling team once again in 2025, I think you give them 2026 to continue to develop their guy. So it's probably the fact, the Giants, this regime bought a lot of time when they went to the playoffs in 2022. That's really what this is. If they didn't go to the playoffs that year, they finished a game shy of the playoffs. They're probably fired midway through this season, but they have made it to the playoffs and they did win a playoff game. So you have a semblance of hope about this regime. You could say, okay, they've done it. They've won an important game. Let's see if we can keep them around long enough to win more important games. It's totally possible. So I think that they bought a lot of time with that. And because of the time left on their contracts, this is going to be their 3rd season when it wraps up. They'll have 2 years left on their deal. If going into that 4th year of the contract, they draft a quarterback, well, are you really going to fire them with 1 year left on the deal? No, let them play out the contracts before you discuss a potential extension. See what their quarterback situation looks like. See if this team is winning more games by the time we get to 2026. Absolutely hate that we're looking ahead to 2020 fucking 6 right now. It's 2024. We've still got months left in 2024, and I'm talking about 2026, Alex. That makes me literally sick to my stomach that we're having that conversation. But if you're asking me about the future of this regime, I think they get the 2025 season. And as long as they show some sort of progress with a rookie quarterback, I think they get the 2026 season as well. And who knows? Maybe they draft a quarterback back-to-back years. Maybe they draft a mid-round or mid-first-round quarterback this upcoming offseason. Well, shit. Now they're picking top 3 the following year. Oh, Arch Manning's out there? Boom, let's take another QB. You never know the way that things are going to go in terms of the NFL draft. It's so crazy to me how things change between October and April. Right now, Garrett Nussmeier, we talked about the Nuss bus yesterday and how I'm getting on the Nuss bus. I'm driving the Nuss bus. I'm excited for him. Right now, he's probably considered a 2nd round pick, maybe 1st. By the time we get to April, shit, he might be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So who knows? You just can't look too far ahead to the future. We have to take it week by week. That's why I do feel like John Merrick, smart to say that he wants to keep patience with this team, take some pressure off of Daboll and Schoen, allows them to just be themselves. But at the same time, you can't make a determination for January all the way here in October. By the time we get to January, this could be a completely different team. Drew Lock could have stepped in and won 8 games by the end of the season. Who knows? Totally possible. Not probable. It's not going to happen, but it's possible. You never know. So these next 10 weeks, wait and see what happens. Then we could talk about 2025, 2026, what's going to happen with Schoen, what's going to happen with Daboll. But just to really answer your question more firmly, I think they get to play out their contracts and then John Mara will make a decision, but it's really going to be contingent on how these next 10 weeks go.
And they're not going to go well. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, it's
well,
bad. I mean,
listen,
the Steelers are going to kill us, dude.
They are
going to kill us. It's going to.
They are, and they're going to kill us because this offense isn't going to put up any points against that defense, and then the result of that is going to be Daniel Jones getting benched, and then who knows who steps in and sparks something. Last year, with 10 weeks left, were we not talking about the same conversations, Alex? Were we not thinking the exact same things right now? What's the future of this team? How do Schoen and Daboll survive this? And then out of nowhere, this rookie 3rd-round Italian kid came in and won 3 games in a row, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now Daboll proved that he can win games, blah, 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 blah. The narrative changed. How does the narrative change over the next 10 weeks? I don't know. I can't assume that they're just going to get beat up by every team they face for the next 10 weeks because Brian Daboll's track record says they're going to sneak out a few wins between now and the end of the season. But how do they sneak out those wins? Who's throwing the ball in those wins? How does the defense look in those wins? These are the questions. How does the locker room look across those next few wins in those final 10 weeks of the season? That's the biggest question. So, you're right. Things are going to get ugly. I agree with you. That's probably the case. But you'd really Don't know. Maybe Drew Lock does step in and have a Linsanity run similar to what Tommy DeVito had last year. Maybe he puts up 3 wins in a row, and one of them is against a division rival. Totally possible. And then we're talking about, okay, give Daboll his freaking quarterback this offseason and let him get to work with a legitimate talent. So who knows how these next 10 weeks are going to go. I assume it will be ugly too, Alex. But maybe the Giants do sneak out some wins, and maybe we're all confident in Daboll by the end of these 10 weeks.
They probably will sneak out a couple wins. And I'll tell you this right now. Behind what Brian Daboll is saying in the sense that, oh, he gives us our best chance at winning, I think Daniel Jones gives us our best chance at losing, to be quite honest with you. And with that being the case, keep playing him. Because if he's going to keep losing.
Hell no, because if he gets injured.
Right, if he gets injured, there you go.
If that injury clause didn't exist, then I'd be like, yeah, fuck it, let's tank. Not really. I don't want to tank. I don't want to purposely lose games, but sure, keep him out there, keep letting him get beat up and play out the contract, and boom, we'll figure it out in the offseason. But he does have that injury clause. And this is the thing, Alex, this is something that nobody says enough. The probability of Daniel Jones getting injured is higher than the probability of him not getting injured based on his career history. Absolutely. The 2022 season was the anomaly. It is the only season that he was healthy for 17 games. Even in his rookie season in 2019, he missed time due to an injury. 2020, missed time due to an injury. 2021, season-ending injury. 2023, season-ending injury once again. He is more likely to get hurt than he is to not get hurt. He will get hurt at some point this season if the Giants keep him out there. It's literally just about how long are they willing to take this risk for? How soon do they finally pull him from the lineup? Because based on his injury history, you have to pull him from the lineup because he is going to get hurt based on the probability of his past.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially without a left tackle, it's only a matter of time. And I'll say this, though. Why is it? How do we even know? How does Brian Daboll even know that Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win games if the only amount of time he's going to give Drew Lock is like a quarter to play? You know what I mean? Like, how can we possibly make this determination when we've given Daniel Jones 6 fucking years to get to this point, but we give Drew Lock 1 quarter and he's not good enough to play for this team? He's not better than Daniel Jones. I don't believe it, man. I really don't believe that this is the truth. I bet you that Drew Lock would put together a game that scored more than 15 points, which is embarrassing to say the least, and would still be better than Daniel Jones. I don't care if Drew Lock throws a couple interceptions. You might as well throw it downfield on 3rd down and it be a de facto punt anyway, instead of throwing it to triple coverage of Malik Neighbors, because you literally can't scan the field. Like, it's a disaster. It's just a disaster, man. Like, and like John just said in the chat, best equals the least bad. And when it comes to Daniel Jones, yeah, maybe he is the least bad. And if the least bad is scoring 3 points against the Eagles, missing a couple of big throws. I mean, I watched Malik Neighbors, guys. I've never seen this happen before, Anthony. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I watched Malik Neighbors run a deep post and point to an open receiver, point to him. And Daniel Jones still couldn't hit the freaking guy. Still couldn't hit him in the freaking chest. Off balance throw behind Darius Slayton. Look, Darius Slayton, yeah, he could have caught it, but he's wide open and there's no one near Daniel Jones. Make an accurate throw. It's just over and over again the same exact thing. It just never ends. And the truth is, if they don't bench him because of the injury clause, they need to bench him because they're going to lose the fan base. People are going to cancel their freaking season tickets. I would never buy. Guys, when I tell you, and people that have season tickets, I know it's hard to get them. There's a huge, there's a waiting line, there's a list and everything. I would never even consider buying season tickets for this team. Never. It is a waste of money. It is a waste of effort and a waste of time. I simply do not know how people pay top dollar to watch this football team knowing, yeah, there it is. Like, for God's sakes, man. The guy's pointed at him and he still can't hit him. How people are paying tens of thousands of dollars. And I know it's like a thing. It's like a lot of times people have him. It runs in their family. And that's like barely even a catchable ball, to be quite honest. But
it's a terrible throw.
It's a terrible throw. Look, there's nobody fucking near him.
This could have been a ginormous game.
I can't watch this shit.
It's a terrible throw. You've got Malik Neighbors pointing, showing, oh my God, that guy's wide open. Jones throws the ball. And I get it. People want to rag on Darius Slayton because that's catchable. guys, go out there, play catch with your friends, and try and make a catch like that. It's not easy. You're running in complete speed one direction, turning and trying to make a catch in the other direction. It's very difficult to do.
Our $40 million quarterback can't hit that throw. $40 million. Like, brother.
There's no one within 20 yards of Darius Slayton. There's no way he should have to dive backwards to make this catch. It's ridiculous.
Look, like my favorite part about this, Anthony, one of my favorite part about this, stop at the end and watch Malik Neighbors' hands. Watch his reaction. Watch his reaction to this drop, to this throw.
Yeah,
he's done, dude. He's cooked. He's done. I mean, look at it. You can see it on this angle. You can even see it even better how poor this was. Just check it. Just look at Malik Neighbors in the back, up at the top. You see his hands. He's like, you got to be kidding me, man. I'm pointing at the guy and you can't fucking hit him. It's hard not to feel
defeated when something like that happens, especially like based on, being a wide receiver out there running routes. Like Neighbors is doing his job here, running 45 yards downfield, full sprint to get somebody else open. He gets that guy wide open and the quarterback just can't hit him. It's just very difficult. It's tough. There's a few topics that I want to bring up next, Alex, but first and foremost, I want to get to Brandon Williams here. Thank you so much for the super chat. You said, Anthony, you're my hero. That rant you did touch my soul. Alex, always amazing with your rants. Also, how can we be in green position or in green at position for Cam Ward? So to get in position for Cam Ward, got to lose some goddamn football games, man. Got to keep the losses coming. In terms of being your hero, sure, I'm Superman. I'm very happy to be. Listen, that shit was straight from the heart, man. That was like, I want to say months and weeks of pent up anger. It's like years. I have like when Daniel Jones got drafted, guys, you got to understand. I like nearly cried. I was watching the draft with my friends. I had to leave. I had to go outside and go on a walk for 10 minutes before I came back and recollected myself. This guy has been traumatizing me since 2019, man. All right. So this was finally letting it out. And listen, you guys love the rants. Somebody said we need another Ant rant. They're coming. Don't worry. This team has given me a reason every single week to get pissed off. I'm sure there's going to be more rants coming on the horizon soon enough. In terms of getting Cam Ward, you're going to have to lose more games. He's probably going to be a top 5 pick with the way that he's been playing football. And, who knows? Again, let's see what goes on by the end of the season. The college football season is long as well. Who wins the Heisman? Who wins the college football playoffs? All that stuff. You have to keep in mind there's a lot of movement that's going to happen on these draft boards. But ultimately, if we do have an opportunity at Cam Ward, sign me up, man. I wanted him in this year's draft when he initially declared. He was supposed to be a mid-round pick. I said to the Giants, don't get a quarterback in the first. Circle back to the 3rd round and take Cam Ward. He's going to have a 5th-round projection. Take him early. Make sure nobody steals him from you. This kid's a gem. You could develop this kid. He's got arm talent. He's got decision-making. He's got a cannon. That's who I wanted in this year's draft in the middle rounds. He ended up transferring to Miami and going back to play one more year in college. Now he's looking like a potential top draft pick. I was right about his talent. Now it's just going to be harder to get that talent. But if the Giants have the opportunity, you take Cam Ward, you put him on the Brian Daboll, and you develop him, and you hope that he does become that superstar that he clearly has the potential to become. But Alex, Batman and Robin here. Batman and Superman, actually. We're both lead heroes. You're also the king of the rants. How are you feeling? Obviously, great comment here from Brandon. But Cam Ward, I know that's your guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's your guy too. I appreciate it, Brandon. I really appreciate it a lot. And listen, we are just emotional Giants fans at the end of the day. We've been doing this for 5 years, recording about this team almost, I'd say on average, every single day for 5 years. We are far more consistent than Daniel Jones in MetLife. I'll tell you that right now. And that's the truth. Well, he's consistently bad at MetLife, so maybe he is just as consistent as us. But I don't know really what the future looks like for this Giants team. They've positioned themselves in a spot where can they even get Cam Ward? At the moment, what they really need, Anthony? You want to know what they really need? They need the New England Patriots to not win another game is what they really need. Because I don't know if the Panthers are sticking with Bryce Young. I don't know if they still have faith in him. I think they may take a quarterback. And if the Panthers are there number 1, they may take Cam Ward, right? If the Patriots are there at number 1, the Giants are moving up for Cam Ward. They will. I mean, if that's the guy that they love. Again, they have to have conviction in him. I don't know what their scouting process is going to look like. I don't know. I mean, Brian Daboll hasn't even really been able to see any of these guys yet, and he's the one that's going to be coaching this young player, right? I don't really care. Like, these guys going to see, like Brandon Brown, I love it. It's great. But until we see where Brian Daboll is going to watch these players, then we'll have a better idea, right? Like when the playoffs come around.
Yeah. No, for sure. And by the time January rolls around, we're going to be talking college football playoffs. We're going to be talking about the Senior Bowl. There's going to be a lot of time there for Brian Daboll to get involved in the scouting process. But you're right. it's got to be he who signs off on the QB, just the same way that we saw in Hard Knocks. Joe Schoen said, Daboll, you good if we trade up for Jaden Daniels? And he said, yeah, I'm down for that. It was Daboll signing off on
you
the
have no
trade.
idea how
It
much
was,
that hurts me, dude.
yeah,
That was my
I'm sorry.
guy.
I'm sorry
That
for
was my
bringing that
guy
up. I'm
so
sorry.
much. That hurts my soul.
Dude, you know how much it hurts me that we nearly made a trade for Drake May? That was my guy, and it just didn't happen. This was the cock tease of an offseason, dude. We got blue balled. We almost got that quarterback, but it just didn't happen.
And I love Neighbors, so it's okay. Like, if we end up with Cam Ward and have
Neighbors was my
Neighbors,
WR1, man.
yeah.
He
If
was
we
my
end up with
WR1.
Neighbors and Cam Ward, I will be happy, and I think it'll be of well worth the wait. But we got to get Cam Ward first, and like
Got to get
the
QB.
Giants, and the Giants are
Easier
2-5. They're ninth in the tankathon right now. It's tough.
Give me JJ McCarthy. Trade for him.
They're
Give
not
me
trading
JJ
JJ
after 1
McCarthy.
year and a torn meniscus. I'm just kidding. I don't know though, but I just throw that out there because every offseason you got to keep that in mind. Like, who's going to be on the trade block? I don't know. Could it be
You never
McCarthy?
know.
Could it be Darnold? Could it be Bryce Young? Who knows? The one thing though about Bryce Young, Alex, that I just want to, before I get to the super chat from WJ, that I got to remind you and all Giants fans, there is a clear and obvious connection between Brian Daboll and Bryce Young. We saw it on Hard Knocks. During the pre-draft process, Brian Daboll called to Nick Saban and said, who were the biggest problems for you in the SEC? Who are the dogs? He said, Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. Those were the two players that Nick Saban pinpointed. Who were the two players that the Giants heavily considered taking at number 6? Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers. They take Nick Saban's work as Bible. They take his word as bond from Nick Saban. Daboll trusts everything that guy says. If he calls up Saban and says, yo, what's your impression of Bryce Young? I know he's had a really tough start to his career in Carolina. If we can get him for a late round pick, do you think that it's worth it? If Nick Saban says Bryce Young has all pro potential, you got to trade for this kid, Giants will trade for him, So I think that's something that we don't talk enough about as Giants fans. I don't think that a Bryce Young trade is likely to happen. Definitely not during this season. But once we get into the offseason, if the Giants are picking out of range for a top quarterback and they got to get creative with their options, I would keep an eye on Bryce Young if he is on the trade block, just because of that Alabama connection that Brian Daboll has. But all right, let's get to the super chat from WJ. I really believe Mara has more to do with DJ playing than Daboll. Mara doesn't want to bench him because that's admitting he was wrong about him. I don't agree with this. I'm always against these narratives. I think that, listen, with John Mara, he gets a lot of criticism. One thing I don't criticize him for is meddling. I don't think he meddles with personnel decisions. I think he's very hands-off. I think he lets the football guys do the football job. We've seen that with the trade for OBJ and many other decisions that this team has made. He was very clear in the Hard Knocks episode. He would not stand in the way of them drafting a quarterback. He was totally fine with them doing it. So I don't necessarily agree with this, but I will say I think that it's Joe Schoen who doesn't want to bench him and admit that he was wrong. Because remember, during those Hard Knocks episodes, we saw Joe Schoen go ahead and say, what, Alex? We saw him say, we did not pay this quarterback $40 million to hand off to a $12 million running back. So I think that honestly, if anybody is applying pressure to Brian Daboll to leave Daniel Jones out there and unlock something in him, it's probably Joe Schoen who doesn't want to admit that he was wrong. But at the end of the day, I just think that it's going to happen. Even if there is somebody who doesn't want to be wrong, whatever, it's going to happen sooner or later. Daniel Jones's days are numbered.
Yeah, I mean, listen, revisionist history, would I have rather extended Saquon than Daniel Jones? I would have done it without even blinking twice. You know what I mean? Like, that's the truth. But years later, you just don't know. Like, we could have never projected the ACL tear. We could have never projected it would get so much worse. But we were scared of it, right? We were scared it was a mirage, and it ended up being. And that's why against the Seattle Seahawks, when everyone was freaking out and DJ looked like he had life in him, we called it that. We said it was a mirage. He needs to prove it every game. It can't be a once in a blue moon event. The problem with Daniel Jones is that the good games are anomalies in a much larger sample size, right? The good games are, very few and far in between. The bad ones are frequent. So that's why when every now and then you get a good one, it feels like a game, a life-changing event, because we're not used to competency at quarterback, guys. Like, I feel like we are so down bad as a fan base. We forget what it's like to have competent quarterback play. Competent quarterback play. I mean, other teams are getting competent play from players making a fraction of the amount. Like Sam Darnold, for example, is making a quarter of the amount of Daniel Jones is and is doing astronomical things. Daniel Jones may as well go on to have a successful career somewhere else, but his primary flaws have been undeveloped. And they can't be developed because he fails to get to a second read. He fails to read the field properly. He can't throw the deep ball anymore. The play calling is limited because of his weaknesses. It's over in that regard. Is this Mara's fault? And by the way, WJ, appreciate the donation very, very much. When it comes to blaming who made this decision, I think Mara gave Joe Schoen carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to resurrect this team. And in their first year, Brian Daboll wins Coach of the Year, and Daniel Jones wins a playoff game. I think off of that momentum, you say, hold on a second, maybe there is future here for Daniel Jones. Maybe he can, come out of some of his weaknesses and develop some of his game. They fell into that trap, right? They should have franchise tagged him, revisionist history. They should have franchise tagged him, had 1 year, see if he could do it again. And that's a mistake that Joe Schoen, that'll be on the wall forever. Everyone will remember that mistake. What happens now is he has a chance to correct that mistake, to let Daniel Jones go, bench him ASAP after this game, most likely, if he fails again, and move forward, knowing that it's time to end that spell. It's time to end that narrative and move on officially. Because listen, Anthony, I get benching Daniel Jones is kind of like waving the white flag, but I'd also argue benching him that's what I'm going to say. Benching him for Drew Lock may end up becoming the thing that re-inspires the Giants, because they now know that Daniel Jones is not winning them football games, but maybe somebody else. It's almost like firing Robert Saleh. The Jets now rally around Jeff Ulbrich, and now they feel like maybe there's some life. Maybe they get Devontae Adams. I'm trying to.
Better example is Antonio Pierce last year.
There's a better example. You move on, you replace somebody, you try to re-inspire your team. Maybe that's what they have to do, because, we're seeing Neighbors is pissed, and he's saying, I'm open after games, blatantly. Brian Daboll is saying that he tried to provide a spark by benching his $40 million quarterback. You will never see a team do that and then a head coach say that after a game, that they were trying to to provide a spark by benching their starting quarterback. That is, nobody says that shit, dude. Well, that is complete. Everything else after he said that was a complete lie, because you don't say shit like that unless you have a reason to.
That's why I don't feel like it would be waving the white flag. It's providing a spark. The Giants aren't giving up on their season by benching Daniel Jones. They're trying their hardest to turn their season around if they bench Daniel Jones, is what I think is truly the outcome there. Another super chat, this time from Playboy Phil. Thank you so much. Big one here. And he asks, Schoen thinks he is smarter than what he is. Ooh, bold words there. At this point, should have just paid 26 and 29 instead of 8. Probably would have had the same record with maybe more excitement here and there. Cam Ward, you are a Giant. Man, I hope Cam Ward is a Giant. You guys know how we feel about that. We've been talking about that a lot the past couple of days. But in terms of paying 26 and 29, oh my God, does it pain me every single week, Alex, to see Xavier McKinney play football for the Green Bay Packers. You guys all know how I felt about Xavier McKinney, how loud I was this offseason about paying Xavier McKinney. The kid was 24. He was an elite talent at the safety position. How the fuck did they let that kid just walk for nothing in free agency? At the very least, they should have traded him at the deadline. Somebody would have given up a second-round pick for Xavier McKinney. I can almost guarantee that. And that second-round pick could have been a stud for the Giants. Instead, he walks in free agency for nothing. How many picks does he have so far this year? At least 5. He's got some sacks. He's got forced fumbles. Kid is one of the best, if not the best, safety in football this season. I can't believe that they just let him walk for nothing. That had me pissed off back in March, has me pissed off now. Every single week that I see this kid make plays, I'm more and more pissed off that we let Xavier McKinney walk for nothing. Alex, it literally blows my mind. And really, the reason why it happened is because they paid Daniel Jones. That is the argument. And this is where I get so fucking pissed, Alex, because that man, Ralph Vecchiano from Fox Sports, who tweeted at me and said, Daniel Jones's contract is a bargain. That's what he said this offseason. And he said that the contract did not prevent them from doing anything that they wanted to in free agency. How the fuck can you say that when Xavier McKinney is playing for the Green Bay Packers?
I'll add on top of that too. The only way that they were able to spend money is by restructuring all of their big contracts, except, and you want to know another indication of why that's a load of bullshit? Because they didn't restructure Daniel Jones's contract.
Exactly.
So not only was it not a bargain, Joe Schoen, by not restructuring his contract, told us as much that it wasn't a bargain. It was a catastrophic mistake.
The Giants' hands were tied behind their backs the entire offseason because of that contract. This man had the audacity to say to me that it didn't prevent them from doing what they wanted to do in free agency just because they traded for Brian Burns. Imagine they had Brian Burns and Xavier McKinney right now. Oh my God, this defense would be the best in the NFL. So The Daniel Jones contract is the reason that Saquon Barkley isn't here. It's the reason that Xavier McKinney isn't here. And it is the reason why that offseason, after that playoff win, Alex, I was so loud on this channel saying the Giants need to franchise tag their quarterback. Sign Saquon Barkley to a team-friendly deal that you can get out of after a season or two. Just make it a franchise tag deal for Daniel Jones. Make him prove it. They didn't do that. They signed him to that long-term deal. And as a result, here we are. No Saquon, no McKinney. Just a terrible fucking football team. But all right, we got a lot of super chats running in. So
much I want to say. God damn.
I know, but let me get to this next one. Do you guys consider DJ's, and thank you again, WJ, you're really throwing it our way today. Thank you, sir. Do you guys consider DJ's tenure here a complete bust for a 6th overall pick? He didn't or hasn't won enough. DJ's been exposed as QB. His IQ of the game isn't there. Too many misreads and bad play. Absolutely do I consider his tenure with the Giants a bust. The number 6 overall draft pick, the successor to Eli Manning. And all he's mustered up in 6 seasons is 1 primetime win and 1 playoff win. Not enough. Absolutely, he is a bust. There's no other way around it. In his personal life, he's not a bust because, well, he got handed a $160 million fucking contract out of nowhere. But yeah, absolutely, his 6 years here have been a complete bust with the New York Giants. It's a bad draft pick. It's just another stain left behind by Dave Gettleman.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anything labeled but a bust is ludicrous. He is absolutely a bust. I mean, if I was Daniel Jones, I'd be gifting bigger Christmas gifts to my agent than the offensive line. Like this is this is kind of where we draw the line in the sand and say the narrative is done. It's over. We have to move on. And I really, and WJ, like really, good question. I appreciate another donation there. And I want to talk about this next one as well from Nick Babas. I don't know if I said your last name correctly, but nonetheless, really, really appreciate it. And this is a really interesting conversation to have, Anthony. A really, really interesting one to have because, as I mentioned like a minute ago, the Giants decided to restructure Andrew Thomas's contract, Dexter Lawrence's contract. They moved money all around, but they didn't touch Daniel Jones's contract. So it kind of tells you like they don't want to compromise their ability to spend in the future by not restructuring his deal, moving more dead money to the future. So why they're not benching him right now is counteracting the logic behind not restructuring his deal doesn't make sense with the fact that they keep playing him, despite the fact that his contract could end up killing us because of that contract guarantee, the injury guarantee if he gets hurt. Now, on the second hand, Russell Wilson came to New York, said, I will play on a minimum deal, but I want a chance to start. And the Giants looked that man in the face and told him, you're not our starter. Daniel Jones does start. They looked a future Hall of Fame quarterback in the face and told him, we're not willing to give you the chance of starting. Right? That to me,
the fact that they couldn't even make it a competition.
They couldn't even make it a competition. They couldn't even a guy coming off an ACL tear and a dirt cheap Russell Wilson. Meanwhile, they have Justin Fields, who's been playing well enough to win football games. They just benched him anyway. He wanted a guaranteed opportunity to start. They were like, well, you're going to have to win it over Daniel Jones. Russell Wilson said, I don't want to have to win it. I want to have it. And the Giants sat there and said to themselves, yeah, Daniel Jones is our best option. Yeah, it's.
And I'll add on to this. And Nick, thank you again for the super chat. This is his 10th super on the live stream. So shout out to you. Awesome stuff. That's what YouTube is telling me over here. But I'll add on to this problem. Not only did the Giants not bring in Russell Wilson, that's a perfect example because he could have been a great competition piece. But you know who else could have been? How about the other Steelers quarterback, Justin Fields? Any of them. There were a lot of quarterbacks available this past offseason. Like, you really look back at it, quarterbacks were getting traded left and right. Quarterbacks were being signed left and right. And the overwhelming majority of those guys that switched teams, Alex, found newfound success in new environments. Justin Fields played the best football of his career before getting benched by Russell Wilson. That's the reality of it. He was playing his best football. The Steelers got a lot out of Justin Fields. Hell, I mean, look at what's going on with Sam Darnold. That's the one, Alex, that just really pisses me off because I remember sitting here on one of these live streams or episodes that we recorded, and I was like, you know who I want to see back in New York, man? Give me Sam Darnold. Now he goes to the Vikings, and he's a fucking MVP candidate. I can't believe that really happened. Pat on the back for myself, but also crying myself to sleep at night over it. And I'm just going to add on here even further and say, not only did he not have a backup plan at quarterback, he didn't make any of those trades or signings that we talked about. he also didn't draft a quarterback in the draft. That didn't make sense. Throw a freaking dart at the board. Listen, I think Theo Johnson's a good player, eventually will become one at the very least. I would have taken that 4th round pick and probably thrown a dart at the board and try and get Spencer Rattler instead. I think if you have this exact same draft class, Alex, but you have Spencer Rattler instead of Theo Johnson, you probably feel even better about this draft class because at the very least, you have a long-term backup quarterback that you can develop who maybe becomes a starter one day. So that's also a missed opportunity in the draft. And again, adding another layer to this, Joe never has a backup plan to quarterback. Neither does he have one to left tackle. I think that's what you were trying to indicate here with LT. Josh Azidu is not a fucking offensive tackle. He is a guard. He played guard in college. The Giants are forcing a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't make any sense. And the Giants had every opportunity this offseason to go ahead and sign a tackle to be Andrew Thomas's backup, which was an obvious move that they needed to make considering the history of injuries to Andrew Thomas. They didn't do that. So now we're stuck here with Josh Azidu as the starting left tackle for the rest of the year until he inevitably gets benched. It's just a massive mistake. Listen, this Giants team, like I said, I praise this draft class for Joe Schoen, and he's made a lot of good moves. Daboll's had some highs, he's had some lows, but the number one thing that this team has really failed to do is plan ahead and plan for the worst. You hope for the best, you plan for the worst. Honestly, the Giants have been hoping and planning for the best. Signing Daniel Jones, Alex, that was hoping for the best and planning for the best case scenario. You got to plan for the worst case scenario and hope for the best. The Giants have been doing the opposite, and it's bit them in the ass real bad over these last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've planned. It's kind of weird though, right? Because they planned well in the pass rush. They went and got Brian Burns. They had Kayvon. They have a good pass rush. They had backup plans. They had Azeez Ojulari. They did some good stuff. The offensive line. They rebuilt it this offseason. But when it comes to the quarterback position, they refuse to just pull the plug. They refuse to cut the cord, man. It's just a weird scenario. Whether it's pride, whether it's Daniel Jones, they want to respect him because he's a hard worker. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, they didn't even offer any competition for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has never been some elite quarterback. He's always been good enough at times, bad enough most times. You know what I mean? That's where he's always kind of fallen in terms of the margins of his quality. Now, the question is, why did the Giants feel like he was suddenly going to develop and become this superstar? Well, everything that they said in Hard Knocks indicated they didn't think that, right? They tried to replace him. They tried to go out and draft the court. They tried to trade up, but they refused. Why? And here's my kind of final take on the matter. Why on earth would you go out there and publicly say that we want to go and draft and trade up for a quarterback, and we're willing to do it. We're willing to go get Jaden Daniels. We're willing to go get Drake May. But then when Russell Wilson comes knocking on your door, asking for a chance to compete and play, you turn him away. How does that make any logical sense?
Well, King Supreme actually is kind of responding to your question here with the super chat. Thank you so much, King Supreme. He said Giants made the right call. Why have Russ to be a treadmill 9-8 team? Hope for a top 3 pick this year. If not, trade up with the Pats or Jags and get Cam Ward. There is an argument for that.
Business. It's so risky, though.
It is risky, but I get the argument here, and I see the argument. However, this is my counter argument is the New York Giants were 3 plays away from being a 9-win team last year. Maybe they are a treadmill 9-win team this year, but imagine if it was back-to-back seasons of being a 9-win team, because really what we saw last year, Alex, I brought this up many times on this show. They were a play away from beating the Jets. They were a play away from beating the Rams. And what was the play away from beating the Bills? Those 3 wins plus the win over the Packers gives us the tiebreaker, makes the New York Giants a wild card playoff team. But all 3 of those games were lost by one play that was failed to be executed by a quarterback. If the Giants had a Russell Wilson, so to speak, on this team last year, they are a playoff team. And if they had a Russell Wilson on this roster this year, he might actually get this team into the playoffs this year. So the Giants are technically a quarterback away from at least being competitive. And I'm not saying of winning a Super Bowl or making a deep playoff run, but to be a 9-8 team and have a hope for the future and, feel your fan base, be competitive, make your fan base feel like you're building in the right direction. If they did add a quarterback with a level of competency this offseason that could step in and replace Daniel Jones, they probably be over by week 8. Playoffs. Yeah, now the season's over by week 8, and it's just all doom and gloom. And hey, to be fair, we haven't seen Drew Lock yet. We saw one drive that's a really tough situation to just step into while the team is pretty much already quit. maybe he gets a start later this year and he sparks something and he wins a few games. And we do feel like we can build towards the future. But right now, it's really just hard to evaluate this roster because you got players giving up and you got offensive skill position players who aren't getting the ball on time. There's just a lot going wrong, and a lot of it does circle back to the quarterback. So even though Russell Wilson, he's not what he used to be. He's not a Hall of Fame level talent right now,
Jones,
but he's a better game manager. He can win games. The Giants could have won. They could have won games with the help of Russell Wilson. Right now, they're trying to win games in spite of Daniel Jones. It's a big difference. So that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, and it's not all Daniel Jones. It's also play calling last week. Like the Eagles had the 23rd. I mean, they had the 23rd ranked run defense, and we didn't run the ball in the first half. And I know the Giants were down, a touchdown, a couple points. But the fact of the matter is, we know Daniel Jones can't move the ball like that. We know that they're not going to be able to throw the football adequately and efficiently throughout a whole game. You have to run the football. You have to get them involved. And they just didn't do anything. So, with that being said, listen, like people are saying in the chat right now, Russell Wilson is terrible. He's not. If you watch what he did to that Jets defense, you simply can't believe that's true. For a player making a veteran minimum contract right now, he's making literally less than probably as much as Josh Azedu is making at left tackle or trying to play left tackle. You're getting stupendous amount of value from him. And he looked really good last week, excellent. I mean, the run game, the pass game, they were on fire against the Jets defense that had Sauce Gardner in the lineup and Quinnen Williams. Not to mention CJ Mosley and some other good players. They got completely walked over, and their defense is awesome as well. Their defense is really, really solid. They're gonna put us in a blender this week, most likely. And if they don't, I'd be very, very surprised. Because Daniel Jones it's prime time and we know what happens. But Anthony, I'll let you get us into the next super chat because I think it's a good question.
Another big one here from WJ. Thank you so much, WJ. You the real MVP, my brother. He said, problem is they let DJ get too comfortable with his job security. They never threatened him on the field with a viable option. DJ got a long 6-year leash. DJ on any other team is cut or bench dirty. Thank you. Exactly right. I really don't even have any comments to add. Everything you just said, absolutely true. Daniel Jones has always had, I said it in the offseason, Alex. So why does this guy have all the privilege in the world? Why doesn't he play in the preseason when Mahomes and Allen and Stroud get out there and play? He's coming off of an injury. Give him the extra reps, even if it's 6 snaps. It at least just gets him back to this feel of the NFL speed in the game. Instead, he only played 1 half against the Texans. Total mismanagement there from Brian Daboll, and it really does have to do with the fact that his leash has always been too long, and they've never threatened him with his job security. They don't push Daniel Jones. I'm in complete agreement with this comment. It's very frustrating to see how the Giants have mishandled this quarterback position, but I'm hoping that going forward, we get a change and we get off on the right foot going forward, and I don't know, hopefully something changes.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the donation again. Thank you so much. And, you kind of said it, Anthony, they've given him 6 years without any sense of competition, not even an ounce. Tommy DeVito's 3 wins last year was the closest we even got to feeling like there was another option. You know what I mean? That was the closest we ever got. Drew Lock is a career backup. He is not a good player. And that was the best that we had. Look, if we had Tyrod Taylor starting right now, I feel like we'd probably be 4-2. That's how much better Tyrod is than at least on the explosive plays. He's just so injury prone. You can't trust him. I don't understand how you can't. Right. I just don't. So is Daniel Jones. I just don't understand how you cannot provide any competition with a player that has been this inconsistent and this problematic and this polarizing over the course of 6 years. I just don't understand how you can go about this with him having carte blanche to every single game. He is the starter. But meanwhile, we have Brian Daboll saying how does Brian Daboll sit there with a straight face and say we're trying to create a spark by putting in Drew Lock and then 30 minutes later say that Daniel Jones is our starter? These two things do not mesh in my head. These two things do not make sense. They are counteractive. On one hand, you have Drew Lock, who is supposed to provide a spark against the Eagles in the 4th quarter of a lost game, and that's what you're saying. And on the other hand, Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win. Those two things do not make sense. Those two things do not mesh together. Brian Daboll is telling a story. We've heard this shit before, right? All off season, everything's fine in the coaching staff. Nothing's problem. Everything's good. And then Wink Martindale curses him out and then runs out of the facilities and immediately leaves and trashes the Giants. Multiple coaches leave. I'm not saying Brian Daboll's a bad dude, but what he's telling us right now is what he needs to say, not what we want to hear. Okay? He is just protecting the professionalism of this team. He's protecting the face and the image of this franchise. What he actually believes is not the bullshit that he is telling us. And I am willing to bet any amount of money that that is the case. There is no way that I'm going to sit here and buy the absolute fucking bullshit that the Giants feel that Drew Lock is a spark, but that Daniel Jones should be the starter. He gives us the best chance to win. It is a total lie. Total lie. The only thing that it does is give us a small sense of this team has not given up. That's the only small sense that I get from that decision. But even that's a load of bullshit because Daniel Jones does not give us the best chance to win. He can't throw the deep ball. Explosive plays, unless we're having a 75-yard, 15-play drive, that is the only way the Giants are scoring points. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. It's so unsustainable with a player like this.
So unsustainable. It's so ridiculous. Difficult to win games when the only way you score is through long drives that just gas your entire offensive line.
Thank you to Tyrone Tracy, by the way, for all those drives.
They can't score off of big plays. They can't get their offense off the field quickly. They can't have short drives that score points. It's just very unsustainable, very difficult to win this way. As we round out here, full hour of the live stream on this Thursday afternoon. A lot of fun. Thank you guys again for tuning in. One last point that I want to make, Alex, before we do sign off here. It's so funny to hear Giants fans talk about tanking and how they want to lose games and stuff like that, and how the Giants fucked up last year because they won games and they didn't lose. In my opinion, Alex, I think they were trying to lose. Tommy DeVito was the third stringer. There were people when he was named the starter that were like, what are we doing? Go sign somebody. This kid can't win football games. What is happening? How are you just going to throw this third string rookie undrafted with zero starting experience into the lineup? You want to know why they did that? Because they thought he was going to go out there, get beat up and lose games. It just so happened that he was a lot better than anybody expected, and he won 3 games. My take on it is that the Giants tried to tank, and they couldn't even do that right because Tommy DeVito just stepped in there and was like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to play my ass off, and I'm going to win some football games and earn myself some long-term money. And he did that, and kudos to him. That's my boy, Tommy Cutlets, QB1 forever, right? But yeah, that's my take on it. And I don't know if people really agree with me, but Tyrod Taylor was even healthy for a few of those starts when Tommy DeVito went out there, and they put DeVito on the field anyway. To me, I think that they were trying to lose, but Tommy DeVito just had other plans, and he won some games. And you know, some things are just out of your control, and they just happen, and you got no way of stopping them. So Tommy DeVito was the tank job. He just drove that tank, and he just lit it up. I don't know.
Well, the problem was like his style of play was so erratic and random that like teams did not know how to stop him, and then they just realized, well, he just holds the ball onto the ball forever. So eventually, he's just going to get sacked, and we're just going to rush an extra guy, and he's not going to get rid of the ball fast enough. But I mean, it's this Giants team just feels like we are just forever trying to escape Daniel Jones, forever trying to escape mediocrity and purgatory. I feel like I'm in a season of Lost. Like this is what it feels like to be a Giants fan right now. Like I don't really understand what the future holds for us, but I'll tell you right now, it starts and it ends with benching DJ, protecting ourselves from the injury clause, moving forward and replacing him. We just have to pray to the good football gods that either we end up with a draft pick capable of getting Cam Ward or a team that already has a quarterback like the Patriots have the first overall pick. It's the only way we can get it done because the Giants have a top 6 pick, which, I mean, by the way, Anthony, what is it going to be the next 6 of 7 years we've had a top 10 pick, something like that, something crazy? Like, is there any other indication how poorly run this team is? I mean, look, I think Joe Schoen did a great job with some of the cap space. I think that Brian Daboll's first year was tremendous, but so was Joe Judge's first year. So was Pat Shermer's first year. We saw so much promise, and then it fell off a cliff. I mean, we saw
first year. I mean,
what I'm trying to say, we saw progress. What I'm saying, we saw progress in both of those first years because it was different. Teams didn't have film; they didn't know how to adjust yet, and then everyone caught up to it. Right. The problem is, everyone knows what Daniel Jones is, and they know how limited the offense is. They know how to stop him, and it's everyone's got the film, everyone's got the play sheet, everyone's got the equation to stop Daniel Jones, and Brian Daboll knows it. And he's not going to say it in public, but you better believe behind that freaking door, where him and Joe Schoen are just talking ball and talking shit, they know what's real here. They know. Yeah. We heard them. We saw them doing it in Hard Knocks. You better believe they're having these conversations behind closed doors. There's no way
when they sit in Joe Schoen's office blaring Beyonce. What are they talking about? That was one of the most ridiculous moments at Hard Knocks. I had to bring that up. But
Of course, but you know it though. Like they're having those meetings and they're talking about the same crap that we do. You know what I mean? They're saying that we can't run
yes,
this offense, dude. We can't run this offense with Daniel Jones who can't throw the deep ball. And Brian Daboll sitting there with his playbook, half of it is crossed out because he can't use these plays. Even before Andrew Thomas went down, can't use these plays. He can't hit them, right? Like, how do you operate an offense when half of your explosive plays are not involved? You can't use them; they're unusable.
I'll tell you how. You get a quarterback who throws with anticipation. And I'm going to say 3 emojis for you. The horse emoji, the chicken emoji, and the lock emoji. You know exactly what I mean. Put him out there. Let's see it. I'm trying to see him throw some anticipatory throws. Throw it in the coverage. Like I keep saying, guys, I miss watching New York Giants quarterbacks throw interceptions because it means that they're trying to push the ball downfield and make plays. And I don't mean interceptions like the stupid ass pick that
DJ's on pace for 14 touchdowns this year and 10 interceptions.
It's over. Get him out. It's done.
14 passing touchdowns in this year with Malik Neighbors. I mean, come on, man. Like,
it's over.
14.
It's done.
And by the way, remember that 2022 season? You want to know what complimented the few touchdown passes he did throw? You want to know what complimented them? 7 rushing touchdowns. This year, 0. He has 0 rushing touchdowns.
He's not getting in the end zone.
Not getting in the end zone. If he's not doing it with his legs, he can't do it with his arm.
And he's been running the football fine. It's not like anybody can blame his knee for that.
He can't get to the fucking red zone.
He just can't move the football. He's just a bad quarterback. I'm done. I'm over with it. I'm sick and tired, and I'm hungry. I want lunch.
Though. Why are we force fed this shit all the time? You know what I mean?
I need to force myself a sandwich, Alex.
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah,
we gotta cut this. I'm starving.
I can keep going forever, dude. I'm so.
we could go all day long. We can go all night long. We could be live streaming until midnight, and we'll just be going over the same points, doing our Giants therapy. That's what people are calling us now. If you guys didn't hear, streets are saying Alex and Anthony are Giants therapy. Fireside Giants is really just Fireside Giants therapy. So we are just here to vent and help you guys vent and air it out in the comments anytime. Maybe we'll be back live again tomorrow. Who knows? We'll see. Stay tuned. Every time we do it, it's just very impromptu. But you know what? You guys still show up. 300 people in here. Thank you guys so much for all of your love, all of your support. You're in here. You're giving us the motivation to keep going. This is why we do it. For all of you guys, we love building this community, and we appreciate all the love and support that you showed throughout yesterday's live stream, today's live stream, and in the comment section on every single episode. So make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you stay tuned to Fireside Giants on all of our social media channels. We've got plenty of content to be pumped out. So YouTube short and Instagram reel will be posted today. So again, go stay tuned to all of that. And we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.